Welcome to House Talk on KAFM 88.1 Community Affairs. This is a monthly program that features local experts to discuss real estate topics of interest to home buyers and sellers in Mesa County. We're your hosts. I'm Kate Porras. I'm a realtor at RE/MAX 4000.
And I'm Janice Burtis. I'm also a realtor at RE/MAX 4000.
And Janice, I looked at the stats this morning. My eyes got real big.
I'll tell you what, hold on to your chair. Hope you're sitting down when you hear these stats. The biggest thing I want you to hear is inventory of home sales. We are down 60.3%. So
from
what
last
does
year.
that from last year, a year ago? So last year at this time we had 612 homes on the market. This year we have 243 homes on the market. That is just I don't think we've ever been this low in history.
And that is about 2 weeks. If nothing else comes on the market, we would run out of homes to sell.
Well, they say our monthly supply of inventory is 0.8.
So 3 weeks, yeah.
Yep, 3 weeks of inventory. That's down 61.9%, 62%.
And that is the big topic that people have been discussing, in real estate offices, is that there are buyers out there. There are a lot of buyers out there. There just aren't homes for sale right now.
But the great thing, there still is a deal to be had, and that is an interest rate.
Yes, exactly. And I think sellers are starting to see what's happening in the market a little bit, realizing that people are getting close to asking price, if not even more in a lot of cases in our market. And I think it's piquing some interest there too, as far as maybe it is time to sell. They've been wanting to sell for a while, been holding on to it, not sure what's going to happen with the market. And so I think a lot of sellers are at least starting that process in their mind. Yeah.
One of the things that sellers are going to be excited about is our pricing is up 18.7%. So our prices a year ago, 2020, thank gosh we're past that year.
Yeah.
$299,209, and currently in 2021 we're at $355,218.
That's impressive.
Almost up 20%. That's a huge jump. So our sellers are really excited about selling. And the one thing I would like to mention too, I don't think our market right now is the same as it was in 2007, 2008. At that time, we had an abundance of real estate in the market,
right,
and the real estate market did burst. We don't have the inventory right now. I don't see that changing over the next 2 to 3 years. I don't think we can keep up with the demand for the inventory that we've got. So I don't think we should have too much of a fear that pattern is going to change in the next several years.
Yeah, and the difference too is a lot of current owners have equity in their homes right now, when they didn't back then. And so lenders were giving out loans like candy. You want a loan? Here you go. Doesn't matter if you're qualified. You say you got a job, good enough for me. It's a lot different situation
And now get ready. You're going to get put through the ringer when you go through
Yes.
the lending process.
Yes,
So,
it is quite a different experience now getting someone through that lending
and we
process.
will talk about that next month.
Absolutely. This month we want to talk about, because there are so many people interested in buying right now, the interest rates are so low. We want to talk about how this fits into your financial plan. And so we have Adam Lucas on the phone with us right now. He's a financial representative with Northwestern Mutual. Adam, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I'm glad to be here.
So we're talking about preparing your finances in order to purchase a home. Kind of give us the broad picture. How does home ownership fit into the overall financial planning?
Yeah, well, it's a very important part of an overall plan, right? Because you live in it every single day, right? So you want to come home from a long day's work and feel at home. So it's a very important part of the overall plan. But, the flip side of that, too, is you don't want to stretch yourself too thin to the point where you can't accomplish other pieces of an overall plan. Maybe something like saving and investing for other goals like retirement or starting a family or whatever is relevant to you. And so I think, working with a financial advisor and just kind of mapping out what all of your goals look like, throwing it all out on the table is a good first step to build that balance plan that kind of allows you to live the life you want, including something like home ownership.
You're listening to KAFM 88.1 Community Affairs. With us today is Adam Lucas, a financial representative from Northwestern Mutual.
So, Adam, in order to purchase a home right now, you have to come up with your down payment for the most part, anywhere from 3 to 20% that you need to put down. What are some good strategies for coming up with ways to have that money to put down?
Right. Well, Kate, like you mentioned, 20%, I mean, that's a big number, right? And unless you're sitting on a big pile of cash and you can't afford to put that 20% down, there are other options that, like, for example, if you're a first-time home buyer or if you're a veteran of the military, there are some other opportunities there where you might be able to get in for less. But I think, if you have a target or some kind of a goal that you're working towards, separate that from your general savings. Don't mingle the two. And once you do figure out whatever that ideal number is, just make sure you're comfortable with what that savings plan actually looks like, just to make sure that you're not, again, compromising other aspects of the plan.
Adam, should you borrow from your retirement fund to cover your down payment?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the IRS will allow it specifically from a Roth IRA if you're a first-time home buyer, but I would say it's not recommended. And the reason being is because you're counteracting the compound growth that's happening in that account. And the way that we view retirement accounts is they should be purposed for long-term retirement dollars. Now, that all depends, of course, on your age and your time horizon and things like that. So should you? I would say it's probably not recommended. Can you? Depending on the situation, yes.
What about when you're trying to determine how much you're going to put down? Let's say you're only required to put down maybe 5%, but you have 10 or 15% in your pocket. Should you put all of it down? Should you keep some of that, squared away in your account?
Well, I think this goes back to the idea of having a specific savings account that's earmarked for your down payment. And I think, Kate, to your point, you want to make sure that you always have something set aside for an emergency fund. You don't want to completely wipe out all of your cash just to get to that certain number or percentage for your down payment. So make sure that you still have something on hand in addition to whatever you're wanting to put down.
Adam, how do investment properties fit into financial planning? And is it better to pay cash for an investment property, or is it better to leverage it sometimes like we do our personal residences?
Yeah, well, I mean, real estate can be a really powerful tool in building wealth. Our perspective is that it should be utilized within the context of a diversified financial plan. That word diversification, that's kind of financial planning 101. And so, just like any other investment, you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket. So if you have the cash available to use and it's not, let's say allocated to your emergency fund, then yeah, that certainly could be used for an investment property. Really, at the end of the day, it kind of just depends on how much cash you have, how much you have the ability to save, and really how that affects your overall plan.
You're listening to House Talk on KAFM Grand Junction. On the line today, we have Adam Lucas, a financial representative from Northwestern Mutual.
So, Adam, we usually counsel buyers that if you're going to buy a home, plan to be there at least 2-3 years is even better. Mm-hmm. Is there a time frame, a time limit? How long does someone need to own a home for it to really become a good financial benefit for them?
Yeah, well, and I'm sure, Kate, that this is something that you kind of talk about with your clients, that a lot of it depends on the market, right? But generally speaking, the longer you own the house, the more equity you're going to have built up in there. But to your point, you do need to own it for at least 2 years before selling in order to avoid capital gains taxes. So I think that 2 to 3 year window is a good rule of thumb. Again, it just kind of depends on your situation, though.
Adam, do you have any advice that you can offer for any of our first-time home buyers who are listening?
Yeah, I think the first step is determine what you can afford. Figure out what that number is, and you can use an online mortgage calculator to kind of help arrive at that answer. But I think the easiest way to look at it is figure out what you can afford on a monthly basis. Right? Figure out whatever that mortgage payment would theoretically look like and how that fits into your budget. And then once you kind of find out that number, then you should obviously get in touch with the lender, figure out what you can get pre-approved for, and then, of course, you want to connect with a realtor, and they can help you figure out what you're actually looking for and find the right home for you. I think another thing that helps there is making a list of needs versus wants. Like, for example, an attached garage or maybe a fenced yard. My wife and I, we're looking for, we've got 2 very energetic dogs, so we're looking for a fenced yard, and that's non-negotiable, right? The next place that we have has to have a yard. So just make a list of must-haves or maybe nice additions, and I think that will help curate your budget.
Adam, is there ever a time when you would recommend to someone to rent rather than to purchase?
Well, renting is cheaper in the short term, right? Because you don't have to pay for things like closing costs or property taxes, the insurance, homeowners fees, different things like that. On the flip side, when you do buy, you're building equity as the amount you owe on the mortgage decreases, and hopefully the value of your home is increasing, right? Keep in mind, though, that you do have a lot more responsibility when you own. And there could be unexpected maintenance costs, the water heater goes out or whatever it is, right? And that's outside of the down payment closing costs. So just things to keep in mind. But I think the general rule is that it usually makes sense to buy if you plan to stay in that home for, anywhere between 5 to 7 years.
And how much are we talking as far as, monthly income, other investments that you have? How much should go toward your mortgage versus, what you're bringing home every month and having to put into other investments as well?
Yeah, well, so lenders will often use a guideline called the 2836 rule when they're looking at borrowers for a loan. And so what that means is they want the borrower's housing costs to not exceed 28% of their gross monthly income. So, for example, if you made $10,000 per month before taxes, right, they don't want the housing cost to exceed $2,800, or at least not by much. And then the 36 part of that is they want your total debt to not exceed 36%. And that includes things like credit card balances, student loans, payments on a car or something like that. So really looking at the entire picture. But I think anywhere as far as housing cost goes, anywhere between that 20 to 30%, that's probably a good starting place.
How much money should I be saving after closing, Adam?
Well, we always recommend having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved up. And you want to make sure, too, when you're looking at buying a house or a new house, that you're taking into account what your new monthly expenses would look like. Again, you don't want to completely empty out the bank account just for the sake of getting into the house, and then all of a sudden you're left with no emergency fund. So you want to make sure that you're kind of budgeting what the new numbers would look like, and trying to reserve at a minimum 3 months of living expenses outside of the down payment.
There's really so many things to think about when you're really looking at your overall picture. Am I financially ready to buy a home? And is this something that's going to be benefiting me not only today, but in the years to come? So many factors, Adam, it seems like, that really need to come into play and you really need to think about in this process.
Right. Yeah. And so, my recommendation there is review a comprehensive financial plan, whatever your plan is. And if you don't have a plan in place, I'd encourage you to reach out to a financial planner and get one in place. I think more than anything, it helps provide some clarity rather than just kind of a guessing game. And Kate, to your point, with other factors, you should also be including things like how much debt you currently have, what your spending and budgeting habits look like, and how much you currently have in savings. So overall, you want to make sure that you're financially healthy, right, in good financial shape before you make a major purchase like this. But of course, again, the specifics really just kind of depend on your particular situation.
We want to thank Adam Lucas with Northwestern Mutual for being our guest today on KAFM House Talk. If our listeners have more questions, Adam, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So my email address is adam.lucas@nm, like northwesternmutual.com, or my office line too is 303-996-2375.
Adam, thanks so much for all that great information. This segment airs on the second Wednesday of each month, and you can also listen to podcasts on demand at kafmradio.org. Make sure to join us next month for another edition of House Talk. And if you have a topic that you want us to discuss, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. You can contact me by visiting my website, kateporras.com.
And you can contact me by visiting janisbertus.com. Have a great day.